Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're doing something a little different. We're taking what is technically a fictional narrative, but we're treating it as fact. We're treating it like the most incredible, high-stakes police file you could ever imagine.
Exactly. We've got a dramatic rescue, a really complex international mystery, and just layers upon layers of deception.
And it all unravels under this immense pressure. This is a story about what happens when one person's intuitive, totally selfless act just plunges them headfirst into a world they are not prepared for.
Yeah, that's really our mission today. It's not just to recount the story, it's to track the consequences. We're following the protagonist, Troy Chance, as she has to synthesize all these tiny, disparate clues.
And she's navigating this world where literally nothing is what it seems.
Nothing. Not even a child's own parentage. So our focus is on, quick, thorough comprehension of this incredibly high stakes and deeply personal investigation she's forced to undertake.
And the whole thing, this whole sprawling journey, it starts from this one singular, terrifying moment.
The pivot point.
Yeah. Troy is alone on the deck of a ferry. It's late afternoon, crossing Lake Champlain, the kind of day overcast, misty, chilly, the perfect kind of solitary environment.
And she's only out there because, she can't stand the cramped, stuffy lounge inside.
Right, and then she sees something. Something falls from the ferry going in the opposite direction.
And this is such a classic inciting incident, isn't it? But what makes it so powerful is just how visceral it is. Her immediate reaction.
At first, she tries to rationalize it. She thinks it's, trash?
Trash, maybe a doll somebody threw overboard.
Yeah.
Your brain tries to find the most logical, the most mundane explanation first.
But then, in that split second, she sees it. She recognizes that one unmistakable thing.
A small, wide-eyed human face.
Yeah, plummeting towards this 400-foot deep, icy, cold water. And that's it. There's no debate, no conscious thought process. It just forces her to act.
And the source material is it's brutal about the physical toll of this decision. She dives. She has no idea what she's getting into, really.
And she immediately realizes she's holding her breath for longer than she ever thought was humanly possible. There's this moment where her throat is just convulsing, fighting not to suck in water.
And the only thing driving her is this little voice in her head.
Just repeating, keep swimming, keep swimming, keep swimming.
It's not even about the cold, really. The text says she quickly dismisses that. It just becomes this dull sensation. It's all about the mechanical effort, the agony of it.
It's described as endless. Her ears are ringing from the pressure. She's completely disoriented.
And she's clinging to the pain in her arm, the arm that's holding the boy, because that pain is the only thing telling her that she's still alive, that she's still doing it. It's just this fundamental test of sheer will.
So let's talk about her strategy here, because what she does in the water, it basically defies all the conventional wisdom you're taught about rescuing a drowning person.
Oh, absolutely. This is where you see her resourcefulness, her ability to think under just insane pressure. So standard procedure, the textbook procedure, is the one-arm tow.
Right, to keep them at arm's length.
Exactly. You do that to stop a panicking victim from grabbing onto you, climbing on top of you, and drowning both of you in the process. It's Rescue 101.
But Troy just throws the textbook out the window.
She does. She makes a conscious decision to ignore it. She says, and this is a direct quote, she knew she never would have made it swimming with one arm.
The conditions were just too extreme?
Far too extreme. The water's freezing, the current's pulling at them, the shore is a long way off. Following protocol would have been a death sentence for both of them.
So she adapts. It's just this brilliant, desperate improvisation.
She can't risk the boy, who we later learn is named Paul, panicking. So she pushes his tiny frozen hands under her belt, squeezes his hands into fists, and just yells at him, "Hold on."
But of course his hands are numb, they're weak, they slip.
And this is the detail that is just so incredible, the detail that saves their lives. She reaches back, rips the drawstring right out of the hood of her windbreaker.
And uses it to tie his hand to her belt.
Yes, she literally lashes him to her. It's this grim, almost horrific piece of ingenuity that's born from pure desperation.
And that little piece of cord is what allows them to keep going, to make that long swim to the rocky shore, because the current carries them way past the actual ferry dock.
That improvised tether is everything. It's the only reason they survive.
Yeah.
So they finally make it to the rocks, just completely exhausted, shivering, completely spent. And then Paul, this little survivor, he whispers his first word.
Merci.
Just one word. In French. And it instantly does two things. It establishes the international scope of this mystery, but more importantly,
It cements her bond with him.
it absolutely does. In that moment, she's no longer saving a child. She's saving her child, the one who just thanked her.
But that moment of connection, it fades pretty quickly, doesn't it? As her head starts to clear, this creeping dread sets in.
Right, because the scene around her doesn't match the life and death drama they just went through. Her mind is sharp enough to immediately spot the anomaly.
The dock they were swept past. It's silent.
Utterly silent. No sirens, no flashing lights, no Coast Guard boats buzzing around, and the most critical absence of all.
No frantic parents. No one screaming their child's name.
She actually references the Sherlock Holmes story, the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime.
The clue is the thing that didn't happen.
Exactly. The silence itself is the evidence. The complete lack of a normal human reaction to a child falling off a ferry is the first sign that this is something much, much darker.
And she doesn't realize just how dark it is until a few minutes later, right? When she gets him into her car and starts trying to get his wet clothes off.
This is the moment everything changes for her. It's the psychological point of no return. As she's pulling off his dark, wet sweatshirt, she finally sees what her brain must have subconsciously blocked out during the chaos of the rescue.
The sleeves.
The sleeves. They were wrapped tightly around his little body and tied in a tight, dark, wet knot.
This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a kid who slipped and fell off the railing.
No. That knot, which is described as binding him like a straitjacket, it just transforms the entire narrative in a single instant. Any idea of a tragic accident or even, negligent parents, it just evaporates.
She is staring at proof.
Irrefutable proof that someone deliberately tied this child up and threw him into a 400-foot deep lake to die. That knot isn't just a clue, it's a moral imperative. It tells her this isn't a job for the local police. This is an active hunt for an attempted murderer.
And the fact that the knot itself, that crucial piece of evidence, is now gone.
At the bottom of Lake Champlain.
That immediately forces her into this incredibly difficult, morally gray decision, which is where we pick up in part 2.
Her thinking here is so. It's cold, it's clinical, and it's based on a really savvy understanding of bureaucracy and, frankly, how people think.
She knows that without that physical evidence, without the actual knotted sweatshirt, her story is going to sound
insane. Sensational. Unbelievable. She knows that any police officer, any social worker, they're going to look at her, probably think she's traumatized from the rescue, and assume she was simply mistaken.
So she recognizes that if she hands Paul over, this terrified little boy who only speaks French, he's just going to get lost in a system that will prioritize skepticism over her gut feeling.
Absolutely. So she does something really strategic. She makes what we call a lie of omission.
She does make the call. She reports it.
She does. She calls the Burlington police and she tells them the basics.
Yeah.
Small boy, off the ferry, speaks French. But she deliberately, strategically leaves out the single most important detail.
The knot.
She says nothing about the knot. And this is a conscious choice, a breach of what you're supposed to do. But in her mind, it's completely justified.
And at the same time, she has this really profound emotional realization. She admits she's already beginning to think of this child as mine.
And that emotional shift is what overrides everything else. The logic, the rules, they go out the window. Her need to guarantee Paul's immediate safety and emotional security becomes more important than any bureaucratic requirement.
So she sees the turnoff for the police station, and she just drives right past it. She heads for home, for Lake Placid.
And we should probably talk about her home base, right? Because it becomes a real point of contention later on when Detective Jameson is investigating her.
It's a very unconventional setup, but for Paul, it provides this immediate, if unusual, sense of safety.
It really is a paradox. She lives in this big old rambling rental house that she furnished herself.
Yeah.
And to make ends meet, she rents out the extra rooms.
To this rotating cast of male athletes.
Yeah, skiers, bikers, kayakers,
Yeah.
whoever's in town training, they all share the kitchen, and she has this kind of funny, rigid system where if you leave dirty dishes in the sink, she bags them up and leaves them outside your bedroom door.
Her sort of boyfriend, Thomas, calls her life unendearingly irregular.
That's a great way to put it. And it's this exact lifestyle that the police later used to paint her as unstable and bohemian. But for a terrified little boy, it works.
Absolutely. The first thing that happens is he bonds with her dog, Tiger.
And that's so critical. Tiger becomes this silent, warm, constant protector for him, just sleeping curled up right next to him. Troy gives him some dry clothes, including this old rugby shirt that's so big on him and hangs past his knees.
The source material says he looks like the youngest kid from Peter Pan.
Yeah. And he eats pizza, quietly and methodically, It's a sign that he's hungry like a normal kid, but the way he does it is so delicate, so controlled, it hints at a long period of practiced restraint.
But even with this little bit of domestic calm, Troy can't rest. She knows she has to start digging for answers herself.
The first thing she does is check the facts. She looks up the ferry schedule and confirms the timing. It was a miracle. If either boat had been 5 minutes earlier or 5 minutes later.
He would have drowned, and no one would have ever known. It just validates her decision to jump, proves it was fate.
And then she hits the internet. And this is where the silence becomes deafening.
Right. She's searching for everything. Missing boy Vermont, kidnapped boy Paul.
Nothing. Zero results. She expands the search, checks the RCMP websites in Canada. She looks at Canadian newspapers. Still nothing.
Which is more terrifying than finding something in a way. If he was a random abduction, you'd expect to see frantic Amber Alerts, public appeals.
The silence confirms that this is a very, very controlled situation. Either the parents are somehow involved or, and this is more likely, the police have a total media blackout in place because the kidnappers are sophisticated and have made serious threats.
The breakthrough only comes after Paul has this terrible breakdown.
A complete emotional collapse.
Hmm.
Just a torrent of sobbing in French. And Troy is smart enough, quick enough, to grab her tape recorder and capture the audio. And after the storm passes, when he's calm again, he manages to write 2 names on a piece of paper.
Philippe and Madeleine Dumont, Montreal.
And suddenly, she has a target. She has names. And that forces her to leave the relative safety of her weird little house and walk directly into what turns out to be a world of international crime.
So now she has the names Philippe and Madeleine Dumont and a location, Montreal. She starts digging online, and pretty quickly, she finds them.
Yeah, their public profile is pretty high. Madeleine is described as the elegant, beautiful wife of Philippe Dumont.
And Philippe is the president of the Dumont Agency. It's a big deal marketing firm that, she learns, had recently relocated from Montreal to Ottawa.
But still, even with the right names, there's absolutely nothing in the news about a missing child. Not a whisper, which just confirms her theory. This is either a police blackout or some kind of deliberate internal cover-up.
She knows she has to make contact, but she can't just pick up the phone and call.
No, that would be dismissed instantly. They'd think she was a crank, or worse.
Yeah.
So she comes up with this incredibly risky, really elaborate plan to get in the door.
The fake FedEx ruse.
It's brilliant, really. She gets a real FedEx envelope, prepares a note inside that says, "I may know something about your son, Paul." And then she deliberately obscures the first name on the label, so it just reads, P. Dumont.
And she pretends to be a colleague from a nearby office who accidentally opened a package for a Phyllis Dumont.
It's a classic journalistic tactic, right?
Yeah.
You create a tiny window of confusion and surprise, and you leverage that to get past their defenses before they realize what's happening.
And his reaction is not what you'd expect. It's not relief.
It is explosive, and it immediately confirms just how high the stakes are. Philippe Dumont, tall, handsome, wearing an Armani suit. He doesn't ask questions. He comes out with pure physical fury.
He grabs her. He actually starts choking her.
And accuses her instantly of being a mercenary. He thinks it's a trick, a shakedown, and he's demanding to know how much cash she wants.
I want to pause on that because his reaction is so telling. Why go straight to rage and accusations instead of just cautious hope?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's where Troy's intuition really kicks in. Because genuine grief, especially in these high-control, powerful personality types, it often comes out as rage. It's a defense mechanism.
And she describes the feeling of being choked as weirdly similar to the feeling of suffocating when she was surfacing from the lake.
But even in that terrifying moment, she makes a split-second judgment call. She reads his tightly controlled anguish, his protective fury, as a sign of genuine fear, not of guilt. She decides, based on nothing but instinct, that this man could not have harmed his own child.
And that decision, to trust him despite all the immediate physical evidence telling her not to, that's the axis the whole story turns on.
It is. She manages to calm him down, establish a sliver of trust by demanding he give her proof, and he reluctantly shows her a photo on his phone.
A picture of a younger, happier Paul laughing on a boat.
And that confirms it. So once that trust is there, she has to deliver the awful news that Paul gave her, that he heard his mother, Madeleine, being shot shortly after they were taken.
And Philippe's reaction to that is also strange.
It's muted. It's devoid of the kind of tidal wave of grief you would expect. And that's another huge red flag that just hangs there unexplained for a long time that points to a very, very complicated marriage.
But his paternal instinct, even if it's delayed, it does kick in. He decides he has to go get some of Paul's things Immediately.
He drives her to his home, which is this absurdly lavish Tudor mansion behind a huge wrought iron fence, and he takes her straight to Paul's bedroom.
A room that's been completely packed up.
Yeah. It's a child's entire life, just paused and put into boxes. Oak bunk beds, a desk,
Hmm?
but everything is sterile, except for a row of sealed moving boxes.
Hmm.
A life boxed away for 5 months.
And he just rips into them.
He does. And this is a really moving, really human moment in the middle of all this chaos and suspicion. He's just tearing through these boxes, grabbing a stuffed bear, a little toy truck, a few action figures.
He's grabbing pieces of Paul's childhood.
Exactly. He stuffs them into a bag. He's not waiting to bring Paul home to his life. He's taking Paul's life to him. He's desperately trying to bridge that 5-month gap.
That act really solidifies Troy's trust in him. But when they get to her friend Baker's house, where Paul is waiting, the reunion is. It's just pure chaos.
A heartbreaking false alarm. They walk in, and Paul is gone. And Philippe, who is already on this emotional knife's edge, he just loses it. He turns on Troy, immediately accuses her of setting him up, of lying to him.
The betrayal is just instant.
And the tension only breaks when Baker's kids explain they were playing a game, sardines, and Paul went to hide in the scary cave they told him about.
So they have to use Tiger, the dog, to track him down on this steep, overgrown hillside.
But the real emotional gut punch, the thing that reveals the true cost of his captivity, is what happens when Paul finally sees his father.
He's not happy. He's terrified.
He tenses up in Troy's arms. He clings to her and he whispers in French, "Vous êtes revenu."
You came back for me.
It's devastating. That one phrase tells you everything. It means he believed his protector, Troy, might abandon him. But even worse, it suggests his captors had successfully convinced him that his own father didn't want him back.
So he sees the person who should be his ultimate source of safety, his dad, and he reacts with fear.
Exactly. Troy has to actually mediate the reunion. She has to gently convince Paul that his father was worried that he missed him. It's proof that the kidnapping wasn't just physical. It was a campaign of deliberate psychological warfare designed to sever that paternal bond.
And that damage, combined with the extreme danger Troy is now in, throws us right into part 4, where she goes from being the hero of the story to the prime suspect.
Right. So just as Paul is trying to process this reunion, Troy gets hit with this wave of external pressure from the Canadian police. Detective Jameson, who's described as this rumpled but very persistent cop, he looks at her whole story with extreme skepticism from the very beginning.
And he puts her through the ringer.
Oh yeah, it's this long, tedious, repetitive interrogation. And it's a classic police tactic, right? They ask you the same questions over and over from slightly different angles, just waiting for you to slip up to contradict yourself.
And they're not just asking about the rescue, they're digging into her life.
Deeply. They question her about her bohemian lifestyle, the rotating cast of roommates, her freelance income.
Yeah.
The fact she doesn't have a stable 9-to-5 job or a pension plan.
They use every detail to paint this picture of her as unstable, unreliable.
Maybe even motivated by money. They focus really hard on the physics of the swim. Was it even possible for her to have survived that, let alone with a child? They're building a case that she is lying.
And this suspicion, this idea that she's not credible, it's actually backed up by her own brother, Simon, who flies up from Orlando to support her.
Well, Simon's a cop, so he thinks like a cop.
And the first thing he says is,
He suspects Philippe. He tells her straight up, in any case where a spouse and child go missing, the surviving spouse is always suspect number 1. So Troy is caught in this horrible crossfire. The Canadian police think she's a liar, and her own family thinks the man she just rescued the child for is a murderer.
and while all this is swirling around her, we start to see these heartbreaking signs of Paul's internal trauma. The real scars from his captivity start to show.
And this is where the story gets really insightful, I think. It starts with a fear of rest, a fear of sleep. When someone suggests he take a nap, Paul has a complete breakdown.
He confesses he's terrified to sleep.
Because the last time he took a nap at home, he woke up a prisoner. So sleep, which for a child should be the ultimate refuge, has been turned into a weapon against him. He's afraid of losing consciousness, of losing control.
And then there's the laundry ritual.
Yeah. This is discovered by Elise, the nanny, who is now back in the picture. She finds these little pairs of damp socks and underwear, all wrinkled but laid out neatly to dry in the bathroom.
And Troy puts it together. Paul was forced to wash his own clothes in the sink for 5 months.
And he's still doing it. It's this compulsive, ritualistic behavior. Even though he has drawers full of clean clothes, he's continuing the routine his captors forced on him.
That detail, the sink laundry, it's more telling than any description of the room he was kept in, isn't it? It shows how they stripped him of his childhood, forcing a 6-year-old to be completely self-sufficient in this horrible way.
It's the deepest kind of systemic trauma. It shows the level of psychological control they had, and when Elise sees it, she just breaks down sobbing because she understands in an instant the daily reality of his suffering in a way no police report ever could.
At the same time, Troy is still doing her own digging. She uses Philippe's computer, finds Madeline's old email account, and uses a burner identity to contact one of Madeline's friends.
And this friend, Gina, opens up this whole dark history. She reveals that Madeline had this incredibly troubled past.
Dead parents, bad foster homes, a lost baby.
Yeah, and the research confirms it. When Madeline was 9 and her brother, Claude, was 11, they came home to find their parents dead in an apparent murder-suicide.
And Claude is the brother who works for Philippe's company.
The very same. So this shared violent trauma is the foundation of their relationship. They even changed their names to escape it. It immediately suggests this deep-seated capacity for secrecy and manipulation.
And just as she's uncovering this, the pressure cooker environment just explodes. The threat becomes real and personal.
She's targeted directly. She's out for a bike ride, and a large, dark car, described as having a big, distinctive grille, deliberately runs her off the road.
The impact is just brutal.
She gets catapulted over the car. She says she heard the snap of the bone in her right forearm, and it just becomes this dangling dead weight. But the thing that confirms it was a planned attack, an assassination attempt, is the timing.
Right. Detective Jameson tells her that at the exact same moment as the crash.
Someone called Paul's school. They claimed Troy had been in an accident and that they were sending a driver to pick Paul up.
It was a coordinated two-pronged attack.
Absolutely. Phase 1, incapacitate the protector, Troy. Phase 2, snatch the child from the school. It's in this moment that Troy realizes, with this chilling clarity, that she's no longer a bystander. By saving Paul, she's become an active enemy of the people who want him dead.
So now she's not just a suspect, she's a target. And she's physically broken. This forces her to pivot in Part 5 from being a person of interest to being a full-blown investigator.
She realizes the only way out, the only way to clear her name and protect Paul, is to solve the damn case herself.
And she's incredibly resourceful, even with her arm in a cast. She can't use normal channels, so she falls back on her journalistic tradecraft.
She sets up a P.O. box, gets a track phone, uses a fake identity, and she places a very specific classified ad in a Burlington newspaper looking for anyone who saw 2 French-speaking Canadian men around the time of the incident.
It's this really low-tech, old-school approach, and it works. It gets a breakthrough that the entire official police investigation, which was focused on high-level suspects like Philippe, had completely missed.
It does. A ferry worker named Dwight responds, and he remembers the men. But more importantly, he gives her a critical piece of information. He identifies their vehicle.
A dark green 1996 or 97 Plymouth Grand Voyager van.
That level of specificity, make, model, color, year. It's a concrete, actionable lead. It just shows how her focus on the ground-level details, on what an ordinary person might notice, was so much more effective than the police's theoretical approach.
They find the van, of course. It's abandoned, registered to a fake name. But she keeps pushing, following a tip that one of the men was seen in an apartment near Pearl Street.
So she starts combing through old classifieds, pretending to be a prospective renter, and she meticulously checks out basement apartments in that area.
And she finds it. The place has been recently cleaned, freshly painted, but it matches Paul's description.
But the real clincher, the tiny detail that connects it all, comes from the owner's daughter-in-law.
The McDonald's toys.
Yes. The woman mentions that after the 2 foreign men who paid in cash left, she found a bunch of little McDonald's toys left behind when she was cleaning.
And that instantly, irrefutably, confirms Paul's story about eating fast food all the time while he was being held. It's the detail that proves he was there, that his story is true.
While Troy is getting this crucial physical evidence, the official case takes a major turn. A woman's body is found in a car outside Montreal, and is believed to be Madeline.
And this discovery finally prompts Philippe to confess the whole agonizing truth about his marriage.
And it's just this raw, brutal moment of honesty. He admits that Madeline had targeted him for his money, that they only got married because she got pregnant, and he suspects it was a deliberate trap. He says she never, ever bonded with Paul. The nanny, Elise, was his real mother figure.
Which explains his muted reaction when Troy told him she'd been shot.
Exactly. But then comes the biggest bombshell. the thing he regrets the most.
He admits that when Madeline and Paul first disappeared, his initial reaction wasn't fear, it was relief.
He was relieved. He genuinely thought she was just trying to annoy me, that it was some kind of dramatic marital power play, and that she'd bring Paul back when she got bored.
And because of that, he didn't report them missing right away. He waited. He lost critical time.
That confession just changes everything. It retroactively justifies Troy's initial decision to go rogue. The child's own father provided the vacuum of silence that allowed the kidnapping to go on for 5 months. He wasn't a murderer, but his neglect made it all possible.
This clears him as a suspect, but it also leads us directly into the final chilling deception. Troy, trying to get some semblance of a normal life back, goes sailing with her boyfriend Thomas and another couple.
The Thibels, Vince and Marguerite. And Marguerite is described as being elegantly slender with short auburn hair.
And as they're on the boat, Troy starts noticing things about Marguerite. Little mannerisms, the way she moves. It's all unnervingly familiar. It matches the photos she's seen of Madeline.
And she's right. The huge, cold-blooded twist, Marguerite is Madeleine Dumont.
She faked her own death.
Meticulously. She found a body double, a woman who looked like her, killed her, and staged the scene to look like her own murder, all to get around a restrictive prenup, escape with a pile of money, and start a new life.
And her brother Claude was in on it?
He was in on the financial side of it, the name changes, moving the money around. But even he didn't know the full extent of it, the murder, the kidnapping of his own nephew.
As the confrontation starts on the boat, Madeline's casual cruelty is just breathtaking. She admits she drugged the wine for Thomas and Vince with Rohypnol.
She's planning to push Troy overboard and only stopped because she noticed Troy hadn't drunk her wine. And then she delivers the final horrifying line about Paul.
She says she only kept him as long as Philippe was paying the ransom. And then...
Zoot. Time to get rid of him.
that one little French word, zoot. As if getting rid of her own 6-year-old son was just a minor inconvenience, like spilling a drink.
And that's the trigger. That final, horrifying confirmation of her psychopathy is what transforms Troy's fear into pure protective rage.
The moment Madeline says, zoot, dismissing her own son's life, that's it. Troy's fear, her suspicion, all the pain she's endured, it just explodes into violence.
This isn't a calculated move. It's pure primal instinct. She just lunges at her.
And Madeline is ready. She has a gun. She fires. And the bullet hits Troy in the left shoulder.
And in the struggle, her other major injury gets worse. Her broken right forearm, which was in a cast, snaps completely. She hears this sickening sound, and the arm just goes dead.
So now she's been shot. Her arm is broken in 2 places, but she's still fighting. All she can think about is Paul.
She's running on pure adrenaline. She uses her athletic reflexes, scissoring her legs to knock Madeline off balance while she scrambles for a fire extinguisher, anything to use as a weapon.
The fight is just savage. It's close quarters. And Troy, with only one functional arm, manages to slam the edge of her hand into Madeline's throat.
And it's noted that even in that moment, she has the presence of mind to pull the blow slightly so it's not a lethal strike. She's still, somewhere in her mind, trying not to be a killer.
But Madeline retaliates. She uses her full body weight, grabs Troy's neck, and forces her down, pushing her under the bottom safety cable of the boat's railing.
And they both go over. They both fall into the dark water of the lake. In those last moments, Troy sees Madeline struggling, and then she goes under, drowning.
Troy survives. She's rescued by some kids on another boat, but she's a wreck. She's been shot, her arm is shattered, she's in shock.
And from the hospital, with her arm now in this massive heavy cast, she makes one last crucial phone call to Detective Jameson's home number.
Her message is so simple, just a whisper.
Tell him Troy's in the hospital, tell him Madeline is dead, and that's it. 6 words to wrap up this entire insane international case.
Jameson comes right away, and with Troy's final confirmation, the rest of the dominoes fall. The police move on Claude, Madeline's brother, who cracks under pressure and admits his role in the financial schemes.
And using all the specific details that Troy uncovered, the Plymouth van, the McDonald's toys, the Pearl Street apartment, they finally locate and arrest the 2 men who actually held Paul captive.
And it turns out they were 2 brothers from Madeline and Claude's own past.
Yeah, from the same foster care system. They were people bound to them by that same shared history of trauma, which Madeline then manipulated to get them to do her dirty work. All the pieces finally click into place.
So the case is closed. Philippe, who was the prime suspect for so long, is officially cleared. He's a widower now. And Thomas, Troy's boyfriend, shows up at the hospital, and his his caring, his devotion, it kind of shocks her. She realizes there are deeper feelings there.
Her personal life might be stabilizing, but she needs to see the main story through. She leaves the hospital, casts it all, and spends some time at the Duman house. She needs to see for herself that Paul is okay.
And she sees all the right signs. He's recovering.
He is. He has a new puppy, a little black lab mix named Bear. He's doing well in summer school. And most importantly, she notes that he's laughing more. The trauma rituals are starting to fade.
And in that moment, she realizes her job is over. Her unexpected, terrifying job as his protector is done.
And that leads to this brief, incredibly painful goodbye with Philippe. She gets in her car to drive away, knowing that she has to leave for Paul to fully move on and have a normal life. She pulls over a little ways down the road and just cries until she can breathe again, finally processing the immense emotional cost of it all.
The whole story, it's really bookended by these two moments in the water, isn't it?
It absolutely is. Her first, reckless, instinctive dive into the lake to save a total stranger is perfectly mirrored by her final, desperate, near-death fight against Madeline. Both were acts of pure self-sacrifice.
And both led to this radical self-discovery. I mean, she started the story as a detached freelance writer, a landlord with this quirky but very controlled, compartmentalized life.
And she ends it as someone who's been through this unbelievable cycle of violence and suspicion, who has risked literally everything for a child she didn't even know.
And we learned so much about trauma that the simplest things, like Paul being afraid to take a nap or his secret laundry ritual, were the real keys to understanding the depth of his suffering.
And the most chilling part is Madeline. Her ability to perform normalcy, to be this elegant, charming, sophisticated person on the outside, while orchestrating murder and planning to dispose of her own child, all to get around a prenup. Her charisma was a perfect mask for a psychopath.
So when you think about this deep dive, what it means for you, the listener, Troy discovered that the very things she survived on Lake Champlain, that intense cold, the fear, the overwhelming desire to protect, those were the things that ultimately defined her true self.
Yeah, when she was faced with all this chaos, all this official evidence telling her she was unstable and mistaken, she trusted her gut. She trusted her intuition about that knot, about Philippe's real anguish, and ultimately about Madeline's fatal coldness.
And I think that's the provocative thought we want to leave you with. How much do you trust your gut when the world, the authorities, the so-called evidence is all telling you that you must be wrong?
And how do you train yourself to see past a flawless performance to recognize the deception underneath?
That was a deep dive for the ages. Thank you so much for joining us.
We hope it gave you some perspective on the power of human intuition.
Until next time.